I'm a Christian, and I have some very good Muslim friends, and as we share our respective faiths, um, they they ask, how can you believe that the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that they're true because they were written after Jesus was alive? How do you know Jesus would approve those words?
Yeah. Very fair question. I've said this to Muslim audiences, and so I say it to you. The problem in talking with an honest Muslim questioner is that you're not on the same playing field. You're playing by two different rules. You have to ask them, will you allow me to critique the Quran? Are you allowed to critique the Quran? First of all, you don't even have the linguistic right to critique it, because only if you understand Arabic can you understand it. And even those who understand Arabic have to understand it at a sophisticated level. One of the famous scholars in Iran was a fellow by the name of Ali Dashti. He's written a book called 23 Years, The Life of the Prophet Muhammad. He wanted to publish it posthumously, but it got published before that. And he's vanished. They finished him off. And he was a linguist. And in his book, he basically says, there is no miracle here. There are many mistakes. There are many contradictions. He said, in fact, the laws of grammar, I've got a copy of the book. He said the laws of grammar had to be, and he's a Muslim. He said the laws of grammar had to be altered in order to accommodate the errors. So when you start comparing the texts, in fact, the Quranic text is completely engineered. The Gospels are not. The Gospel can be critiqued. I think it's a greater miracle when you've got 66 books all converging with the same message than just one book telling you this is the way it is. So it is not at all, I think, flawed. It's basically like saying God can't do it. I would just say to them, for example, actually the full compilation of the Quran took place after Muhammad passed away, not during his time. The full compilation, it was under the third caliphate of Osman where the whole thing was brought together. And when the mosque at Yemen was excavated, variant readings all over the place. And Toby Lester discusses this in a 1999 article in Atlantic Monthly. Read it. The variant readings are there on the origin and the source. But if you take the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, four completely different writers on the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Christ, and there's no variant in the intent or the content of it coming from the same angle, that the God who sent his Son is not able then to inspire the apostles to write it after he's gone. He said it in the book of John, that after I go, the Holy Spirit will come and he will inspire you. And somewhere between the 60s and the 80s, the entire Gospels were written. We have fragments now in the New Testament, 5,000 plus. There is no book in history that is as much studied, scrutinized, attacked, and checked into, that has as many supportive documents so close to the actual events of these things actually happening. And that is in the New Testament. Let me ask, I'll turn the question on to them. They believe Jesus was a prophet, and they believe that the Gospels were actually written. But they actually tell us we've lost them. We don't have the original Gospels. And so the original Gospels, if they believe actually were given, would have been absolute. So I would have to turn to them and say, the God who gave an absolute revelation lost it in the first case. How do you know he's not going to lose it in the next case? You can't play such games. And then, of course, in the Quran, there is also the abolition law, where he could abolish what he had said before. This is not true in the New Testament. It always stands true.